Lal Bahadur Shastri ji was questioned on the Vietnam situation. He thought the situation had worsened recently and urged the need for peace talks. The chances of the Vietnam War escalating into a nuclear war seemed unlikely today, but possible in the future. On the American role in Vietnam War, Shastriji felt that it was wrong for action to be taken by one side only. They should be joined by both USA and South Vietnam. There should be an immediate end to bombing and a general ceasefire. This might lead to a better atmosphere, which would in turn lead to talks between both sides. To the question whether he saw any readiness on the part of the Americans to stop bombing, he thought that the Americans did take notice of the plea by 17 non-aligned nations. Shastriji did not see any indications of these Chinese taking an active interest in Vietnam. India's troubles with China along her northern border had not been resolved at all. The new leaders in Russia seemed to be continuing along the same lines as Mr. Khrushchev, but they are very worried by the United States' attitudes in Vietnam. The conversation then turned to Shastriji's talks with Pearson. Shastriji said they had some very friendly talks and Canada seems very friendly towards India. They had long talks on the Indian situation, South Vietnam and world peace on the whole. Canada and India agree on many points and the talks had been very valuable.
Mr. Shastri, Vietnam is currently the major trouble spot in the world. What is your assessment of the situation there?
Situation in Vietnam has continued to be pretty difficult. However, during the last couple of months, things have further worsened, and all efforts to bring about talks between the parties concerned have not succeeded.
In your view, what are the chances of the hostilities there escalating into a major war, possibly involving nuclear weapons?
Well, the question of use of nuclear weapons perhaps does not arise at the present moment. However, there is a fear of an escalation of the conflict. However, I have a feeling that none of the countries concerned want this conflict to escalate, and they will think 100 times before taking measures which would help in the widening of the conflict. I therefore hope that the present position might continue till some other alternative has been found to ease the present situation in Vietnam.
What about the American role in Vietnam, sir? How do you assess the so-called falling domino philosophy of the United States, which is along the lines that if Vietnam falls to the communists, then Thailand will follow, and then the Philippines?
I do not think that that proposition could be made generally applicable to all the countries which you have just now mentioned. The question is that of the South Vietnam. And there is an intervention by the United States of America in Vietnam. It is difficult to suggest that there should be action taken by one side alone. What is needed is that there should be joint action by both the countries, I mean the United States of America, and there should be a response from North Vietnam as well. This would help in ceasefire and the ending of hostilities, at least for the time being.
Well, this seems to be the major problem, getting them together around a conference table. How do you suggest that this might be accomplished?
Well, I have suggested that there should be ceasefire and the bombing should also stop. It might help in creating a better atmosphere, which might also lead to talks and discussions.
Do you see any readiness on the part of the United States to stop this bombing, though?
The United States did respond to the appeal made by the 17 non-aligned countries, and they did not impose any conditions for the talks to be held. However, I do not know what their attitude is in regard to the stopping of bombing.
We've already partly covered this, but what do you think of the possibility of an intervention by Chinese troops which would turn the situation into sort of a Korean conflict?
It's difficult for me to say anything, but till now there seems to be no indication of the Chinese forces taking active interest into that area.
How about your own problems with China along India's northern border? Are they completely resolved now?
They have not been resolved at all. In fact, the position remains the same when they had made the aggression, and there is a stalemate.
Well, turning to the Soviet Union, Mr. Shastri, you've just recently visited Moscow, where you met Russia's leaders, including Premier Kozygin. Do you think the new leaders are inclined to take a tougher stand with the West than Mr. Khrushchev did, or are they basically continuing his foreign policy?
I do not think that there has been much change in their foreign policy. As far as I could see, the present leadership of the Soviet Union would like to avoid coming into conflict with the Western countries. However, they are greatly worried over the attitude of the United States of America, and they seem much concerned over the situation as it exists at present in Vietnam.
Did you receive any indication from the Russian leadership about what Russia might do if China did intervene in Vietnam?
No, I've had no talks and discussions on this matter.
Do you think there's any possibility of an International Control Commission conference being used as a means of getting both sides together to talk about peace in Vietnam?
International Control Commission has taken some interest in this matter, and the International Commission, I'm sure, would very much like that there should be a Geneva-type conference held in which the present complicated issue of Vietnam might as well be discussed.
Turning to your talks with Prime Minister Pearson, sir, I wonder if you could give us some idea of what you've been talking about. And
well, it has been a very interesting discussion, and I must say that the approach of the Prime Minister is very friendly towards India. We discussed about the Indian problems, especially economic, but we also have had discussions on the general world situation. We had long talks about South Vietnam and also how to restore peace in that area. We have had also talks about the maintenance of peace in the world as a whole, and we agreed that the United Nations must exist and it must be strengthened. We felt that it was the only international forum in which almost all the countries of the world are represented, and it is through the United Nations that peace could be maintained and preserved in the world.
we're out of time, sir, but I wonder if you could say whether your thoughts were along the same lines as those of Mr. Pearson about the international situation generally, or were there differences in how they should be approached?
In many matters, our approach was the same, and I have no doubt that our talks and discussions